Welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Lead Live. This is an opportunity today for us to continue to envision how to leverage each other's leadership talents, born out of a particular mindset, a set of values, a set of beliefs that in its most basic form demonstrates the synergy of the heart and the mind connection. Doing so, I believe, is essential to advance our humanity, which is integral to ensuring our collective health and well-being. And by necessity, it will lead us to actualizing what so many of us seek: genuine equity, parity, and inclusion. I am particularly honored today because I have a special man who's going to join us. He is my brother, and his name is Paul Hosch. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then I'm going to ask him to come on very quickly. He's an executive with a passion for giving. He leads teams that annually exceed fundraising benchmarks. This year, $6 million for Verbum High School, ensuring the transformation efforts or transformative efforts that have historically supported graduates, 100% college university acceptance rates. Paul is founder and principal at Nonprofit Fundraising Management, a firm uniquely focused on providing nonprofit fundraising support to educational and religious organizations dedicated to making a difference in the community. He works with leadership teams to transform current and develop new programs by elevating their financial resources. He has a legacy of board leadership, including as board chair emeritus at Santa Monica College, where he and his fellow members manage $20 million endowment and contributed massive amount to scholarships annually, at least $500K. He's an annual volunteer at a place called home. I know Paul because of his leadership in our family. He enjoys spending time, especially with his lovely wife, who's a dear sister-in-law, and with the rest of family and remarkable friends who he embraces his friends like family. Cooking vegan food, national, international travel, collecting art, beautiful art. You'll see some of it in the background. And flipping classic cards, and oh my goodness, he reads. He's an example to so many of us. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome someone I'm honored to say is my brother, Paul Hosch. Would you please come on? He's a senior vice president of Verbum High School, a Crystal Ray School in Watts, California. He shares his gems about timeless leadership, the value of authenticity, creativity, and collaboration. Now, we know we need strategic, diverse, healthy, and transformative leadership now to prepare us for a very different future. Throughout communities nationwide and across the world, responsible guidance and directions are literally saving lives. So welcome, Paul. Thank you for joining me and the rest of the audience.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here on Lead Live. Thank you.
Can you share a little bit more that's personal about you that you believe the audience would benefit from hearing as we go into me posing two key questions of you and others perhaps asking questions as well?
Sure. One of the things that has been consuming my thought process right now has been the civil unrest. And so I'm currently looking for ways to work with several community leaders on how to support Blacks trying to move the needle, as well as looking for ways of how to help whites support Blacks moving the needle. So that's kind of been something that has been on my mind, and I've been working with a lot of people on trying to bring us all together to effect a positive change.
I am proud of you. That's significant.
Thank you.
in talking with you recently, you were sharing with me that over 30 of your contacts among the white community, more broadly, have asked for your guidance and your assistance. How's that experience been for you?
At first, it was humbling and a little bit. I couldn't figure out why I was getting all these calls from all of my friends, and some of my Black friends were not getting the calls, and so but some of them are, I must say as well. And it humbled me, but it also forced me to do research because I wanted to make sure that I was giving information that could be utilized in a positive way. I didn't want to just. At first, I was kind of off the cuff because I was talking to a friend, but then I realized that they actually wanted actionable and steps that they could measure and move forward. So I dug in, got some research, and now I'm putting more educated answers to the questions.
Wonderful. I see people have joined us. One of our nieces, Zerica, good to see you. And PGB, thanks for joining us. Randolph has acknowledged this important session. I think it's interesting that so many, over 30, contacted you, because for a number of us, as we hear our friends, our loved ones, our colleagues, or even strangers ask us that question, we're like, not again, not again. So why do you think you didn't go there and just simply say, figure it out yourself? Why did you choose to engage?
That's a great question. And I'll illustrate it. I was probably about a month ago, I was on my way to the P.O. box, my local P.O. box. And it was out once, the lock, and after George Floyd had been murdered. And I was heading over there. I saw that there were riots or protests, I should say. And I live in Glendale. And on the way, I passed the little judge, our civic center, and I saw people out there protesting, and probably 70 to 80% of them were white. Mm-hmm. And I drove, and I was a part of the 92 revolution, riot, however you want to look at it. And I was, I was Black Student Union vice president, and I was plugged in. And so, these things sort of affect me. And when I came home, to my wife's consternation, I told her I was going to go and protest the next day in downtown Los Angeles in front. And she said, why are you doing this? Because she takes a different route, and I get it, and a very effective route, but she takes a different route. And I said, I will be damned if I'm going to have someone else fight my battles for me. Mm-hmm. And what I mean was, whites were out there marching in the midst of this pandemic, trying to make a difference. How am I not going to give them the tools when they come to me and ask me how I can help you? How can I not do that? It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I had to do that, and I feel it's all of our responsibilities. I know it's tiring. I mean, we have to keep saying the same thing. It's like Groundhog Day all over again. But we have to give them the tools to help us, because we're not going to do this without them. Period. We're simply not.
Powerful. You just gave me chills. So give me an example, or give us an example. And I know I don't want you to foreshadow all of your genius that you're going to present in a forum with your brothers. But give us an example of how you're preparing to get out that powerful set of instructions, if you will.
How are we preparing? So it was funny when I first was asked this question by a young lady. I was on a Zoom call, and I thought I was, giving her something that, she did not know. She was a white lady, and she was asking, how can I help? And most of us were, most of them on the call were not white. It was like a few Blacks on the call. And I said, the best thing that you can do is, in the face of injustice or racial slurs or poor taste, jokes in poor taste, things like that, make sure you stand up and don't allow those things to manifest and happen, or or be silent, make sure. And she was offended, is a strong word, but she was disappointed with my answer. She wanted something much more substantive, because she already does do that. And so, there were other things that I was able to share, but I walked away from that Zoom call saying, I have to get my stuff together, and I have to be able to sort of give them actionable tools that they can actually use. And so I reached out to you. I reached out to several members in the community that I respect. And I put together a bit of a list and had them look at it. People were, move this around. So it's basically a list that's going to help whites, help blacks. And it's also going to be another list for blacks to help us move ourselves forward.
Excellent. Proud of you. Well, in the spirit of the title of this session, Timeless Leadership, the Value of Authenticity, Creativity, and Collaboration, the reason why you came to mind immediately after a friend, Shamini, and I were brainstorming this title, is because you live this. It's not something that you've tried to figure it out, and you have worked over time to try to figure out. And so I have two questions. And the first question is, from your humble perspective, what is a leader?
Well, leader and leadership, it's when you ask that question, it's a very simple answer. And to me, leadership is taking a team or an individual A to an acceptable B. That's really what leadership is. Is how you do that. That's the challenging part. And when I say an acceptable,
okay, we have a bit of delay.
WNBA teams, and every year. Can you hear me now? Is
yes.
Everything okay now? Okay, so leadership, as I said, I'll back up just a little bit. Leadership is an individual taking a team to an acceptable B, so an A to B. And when I say acceptable, using a team as an example, there are 12 WNBA teams. And every year, each one of them are trying to win the championship. And there can only be one winner, right? But does that mean that all the other teams didn't have good leadership? No. So it has to be an acceptable B. It may not be the B that you wanted, but it has to be acceptable. Now, the how part, that's the challenging part. But before you get to the how, in my opinion, you have to sort of assess and make sure that you are in the proper career. You have to look at yourself first before you look at others and say, can I lead? And so what I always talk to individuals about when they're asking me about leadership, I say, first of all, are you in the right job? Are you good at what you do? Do you enjoy what you do? And are you being paid adequate? Is it commiserate to what you sort of hope for what you're doing? And then lastly, which I think is really important that most people don't really talk about, but are you proud of what you do? Because if you leave that proud off, you could be doing a lot of things, that may not be acceptable in society. So you have to add that proud portion to it. And then when you get to be my age, where you've been a leader, or you're at a point in your career where you're looking for more than just those 4 things, you have to start looking at other things. There's another 3 things that I like to look at. And the other 3 things are balance. Is there balance in your life? Like, for example, I work probably, hopefully my boss is not on this call. I work probably about 25 hours a week. That's the balance that I have. But, I hit my goals, and my team is happy. They're very good at what they do. And so I have a really good balance. And then the other aspect that I would add to it, are you giving back? Are you making a difference in the community? Are you doing something that's going to help someone other than yourself? And then the last thing that I add, to the 7 is, are you feeding your soul? Is it making you a person that you want to be? So, am I in the right career? And then once you do that, then you have to sort of determine what kind of leader you want to be. There's like 8 leaders out there, that sort of is the democratic leader, autocratic, lays through all these different democratic. So you have to sort of determine. And then I've taken the Myers-Briggs, and if you believe in that sort of thing, I'm an ENTJ, and so from that, I've found that I'm a transformative leader. That's the kind of leader that I sort of aspire to do. And basically, what that means for me is I have a team of 3. There's a total of 4 of us, and when you come and work with me, I put you in charge of something. So I don't just tell you to do this, you do that, you do that. I put you in charge of an objective. So we take our goal, we break it down into objectives. And so you have 1 or 2 objectives, and you're the leader of those 2 objectives. So you can basically tell me what to do under those 2 objectives. And the other team members have the same way. And so when we meet, we sort of talk about our objectives. And if somebody is short on their objective, and it's because of me, I didn't make that phone call, or they can point at me like, look, Paul, you didn't make that phone call, and we didn't do this or that, or we did. And so I'm transforming my staff into leadership. And so, because my job is to look for someone to replace me, to pour in all the knowledge and skill and wisdom that I picked up along the way into anyone that will accept it. Usually what happens is, what I've found over the years is that people say no more. They get to a certain point and they stop. I'm happy where I am right here. This is sort of where I want to be, and I'm good. So I sort of leave it at that. And so that's sort of how, I'm sorry, it was a long answer.
No, that's
how
okay.
I sort of describe it from my point of view.
Yeah, and so your strength, which I value tremendously, and is why so many people value particular leaders, is that you assume that everyone who's on your team is a natural leader. And then you equip them, you support them, and you model the leadership. So you are actually embedding the whole notion of succession planning into your operations. So if something happens to you, or you choose to retire, the organization is not harmed. In fact, it's best prepared. And that is a critical part of real transformational leadership. It's not about the me, the I. It's about the us, the we, the collective.
Exactly.
And when we're talking about interacting with anyone other than ourselves, we really have to be about how we can complement the other in a way where we're mutually beneficial, or is mutually
very true, because it's very true. And I approach everyone that works with me, or that I'm working with, as though they have the potential to be a leader. I don't necessarily assume they're leaders, but I feel like they have the potential to be that. I give them every opportunity. And a good example to that is my number 1, which is Stephanie. So she's been there forever. And when I first started at Bourbon Day, I think you've met her.
Yes.
She was an assistant, and not that there's anything wrong with assistant, but she didn't have as much responsibility. And she had been there for I guess 7 years. And I just, do what I normally do, like I just explained to you, and I just threw everything at her. Stephanie now runs the office pretty much. I'm sometimes I'm not very good with the clock or whatever, and I miss a meeting or whatever. Stephanie will run the meeting, and I am not concerned. And because she will handle, Stephanie manages over, we raise $3 million every year or so. This year we're having a special year where we're going to do $6 million. Stephanie manages $1.5 million beautifully. And not that the others didn't recognize her skill. And she is amazing. I mean, she gets things done. She runs the office. She, I don't know what, and I would have never discovered that if I didn't just throw everything. And one day she walked into my office and she said, "I can't do any more. That's enough." And so now I said, okay, that's cool. Just let me know. And so now I know where I sort of have to sort of step in. But I throw everything at them and let them sort of figure it out. One thing that I will say is, I'll give you a thing that sort of, one of my pet peeves, leading a team or working with a team, I should say, is that I want people to make decisions. I want them to. So when, if Stephanie, using Stephanie as an example, if she runs into a problem with something that she's working on, she knows when she comes to me, she has to come to me with suggestions of what we should be doing instead of, I have a problem, fix it. I throw it right back at her. I say, well, go away and come back to me and say, this is what I think we should do, and these are the reasons why. And so my team is so if I can go on vacation for 2-3 weeks and my team will hum. It won't be a problem.
So what you remind me of is the power of investing in individuals so that they empower themselves. I don't believe that we empower others. I believe we give people the space, the questions to answer, the tools, the responsibility, and then they empower themselves through engaging in the act of decision making. And that is one of the critical powers that we have as human beings. We can make decisions. We have the ability to choose. Now, before we're on, because you're just on, we're almost 30 minutes, but I want to honor some of the questions that are coming up. First of all, I want to say hello. I think our nephew Joshua is on here as well. And I'm sure there's other people we can't see who are acknowledging and saying hello. So he says hello. A dear loved one, her husband's on here, Paul. And David has a question, just a remarkable leader. His question is, when you realize a person is not going to become a player, you hope, or the A player you hope, how do you coach them into a position where they will thrive? Wow, that's powerful. Thank you, David.
That's a great question. And everybody does not have the same skills. So that's an excellent question. And what I do is first of all, to back up a little bit, I want to make sure that they're a contributing factor to the mission of the organization. That's key. And we're a nonprofit. So no one person is as important as the mission of the organization. And if they can't help the organization move a needle, then I will help them find another position. I just want that to be clear. Excellent. But if I feel like that they are contributing to the team in a meaningful way, we find we really we encourage our team members to take professional development courses to find out exactly what it is they're capable of doing or what they can't do and how they can move themselves further along in growing their skill set. But if they're not the player that we hoped that they could be, and they can't contribute to a meaningful way, we find a way for them to either move to another position within the organization or move them out of the organization. If we can find a place for them within our department or organization, we will move them there. But the team player, they're just not as important as the mission. We're a nonprofit, and our goal is to get these kids into college. And if you can't contribute user-donated dollars, we have to find someone that can.
Excellent question.
I hope that answered the question.
Well, David, you'll let us know. I think it's a smart response. It's a simple response, and the actual work is not so simple. It can be very complicated and challenging, especially if someone wants to keep the role and in fact they don't have the technical skills or not willing to invest to develop, or for whatever reason can't develop the technical and skills and knowledge to be successful. So David said,
And if I can just, and if I
yeah.
can just add to David's, one thing that I will add, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that I do believe in there are certain reasons to sort of let someone go quickly. The old adage, hire slow, fire fast, and usually I apply that when there is a personality issue, when there's something that can't be fixed. But if there is a skill set issue, I take a little bit of time in trying to get the person up to speed. If the person has the right attitude, you have a long way with me. You know, you have a lot of, I give you a lot of rope. If it's an attitude problem and you're sort of messing up the office, I help you along rather quickly.
Yeah. I think you're being very diplomatic in that regards. Yeah, you are responsible for your process, but you're let's just say you're a family member who's always been extremely frank.
Yeah, but you know, you hired that person though too. So you have a certain responsibility because you've told them that you're going to invest in them. And
Yeah,
so you have a responsibility, you
yeah,
know. However, when they bring in sort of a negative, that I won't mess around with that. But the other part, if it's a skill set issue, I really work with them to try to grow that.
yeah, and that's evident. So are there other questions? Raleigh's in the background. Do we have any other questions?
While we're waiting, there's one thing that I'll say,
Yes.
if I may.
Yes, please.
Make sure you pay your staff very well. I pay, you know, at the top scale of whatever the position sort of, I fight for that. And because I don't want money to be an issue. I want something else that's sort of beyond control. So I make sure my staff is well paid, and I also give them the titles that they deserve.
Excellent. Excellent. I think I saw a question, Raleigh. When I think of a leader making a difference, I consider myself a leader as a father, husband, and even as a son. Yet I'm not in a professional leadership role. How do I start?
That's easy. And it's a great question, I must say, but that's easy. Find a mentor. If you don't have a mentor, that's the first thing you sort of want to do. And it's someone that you can talk. First of all, it's someone in a position that is above you. It might not necessarily be at that company, but it's above you, someone you respect. And it's somewhere that you want to be, a place that you want to be. And a mentor and mentee relationship is a twofold thing. You're supposed to be bringing something to the table, and they're supposed to be bringing something to the table. So in other words, you learn what your mentor's business is and what they can do to make themselves better, and you assist them. So in other words, you find out your mentor has a client, and you read an article about that client. You send that to your mentor and say, hey, I know you talked about this guy last week. I don't know if you saw this, but this might be something you might want to send over to them. You support your mentor. Your mentor in turn supports you. They may say, you know what, there's somebody I want you to meet. I know you wanted to do this, blah, blah, blah. But a mentor is key. I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for the shoulders that I'm standing on. Within my family as well, I have I don't know, I have probably 6 mentors, and probably 3 of them are younger than I am. So, and I have no problem with that. I have no problem with it. But mentor is the first thing. Second thing is read a lot. There's a lot of really good books out there that you can read that, you know, sort of will help you get there. Be a student of what you want to sort of be into.
Yeah, Paul asked what leadership books would you recommend? He had another question too. But what book would you recommend?
Sure. It's tough for that question, for the other question, because he would need different books that I'm sort of reading right now. I've been a leader, so I'm reading sort of more in-depth, deeper leadership books. So I will send a list of books for newer leaders or leaders to be ascribed to. But the current books that I've read recently are they're a little bit older, but they're good books. One is The Alliance by Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman is the founder of LinkedIn. It's an excellent book. This book really shows you how you should have relationships with your team. Like, for example, when Stephanie ever leaves working for me, or I with her, she's supposed to let me know like a year, 6 months before, and I'm supposed to help her find the job that she's supposed to. And that's the way a team runs. And so that book sort of pointed that out and bring the another great book is Exponential Organizations, and that book is remarkable, and it's about sort of working together as a team to really push the limits. What can you do as a team to push the limits? For a quick example to that is Amazon. They created a black ops within the organization. So in other words, the argument is if you don't create black ops within your organizations that would attack what it is you do, someone else will. And someone will beat you. And an example to that is the Kindle. So Amazon said, what could someone create that could beat us? But they did it themselves. It's brilliant. And then Acting Up is a great book by Janice Howroyd, who is his African-American sister who runs Act One. It's a remarkable woman, a fantastic book. It's a homespun book. And then the last one is Atomic Habit, that book is crazy. It just shows you how to sort of change your habits to become a successful leader and your team members to become successful team members. But those are 4 really good books.
And let me tell you, if we had a session just on books, Paul can go on for hours. It's a voracious reader, and I've learned a lot from him as a result. There's another question that's here, and I know we've gone over, and I think people really, this is resonating with people. Paul had another question before, visionary versus role player. What do you, or how do you balance immediate need with long-term direction? I think you spoke to that.
That's a good question. Immediate need and long-term. So when I first started with Verbum Day, the current employer that I work for now, our fundraising plans for the year were about 4 or 5 pages. And they were effective. I mean, we were pretty good, and we were raising about $1.5 million, maybe $2 million. And then now when we do our fundraising plan, they're 65 pages long. And then, so there's a difference. So we're talking about, tenfold. And so what I mean by that, and so how I'm answering your question is long-term planning, in my opinion, is very detailed. We do everything. Like we talk about we have about, 500 to 1,000 donors. We sit down and we talk about each donor, what we think each donor is going to do. Whereas in the past, we looked at the group of donors and said, this is what we think this group of donors will do. And, so we didn't have the detail that we do now. And so we have calendars. We have, okay, this guy, we're supposed to call this guy by this time. We're supposed to send this piece of information to this guy by this time. So we take long-term vision and we synthesize it down to immediate needs. So we sort of try to combine, I hope this is answering your question, but we combine the two. Like we spend the whole summer planning for the year, and then we drill it down to this is what we need to do. However, there are emergencies, and then there are opportunities that come up to where we will look at stuff. So Stephanie learned this one thing that she does to me all the time. Like I throw stuff at her all the time. And so she started about 2 years ago. She says, well, you have me working on this, and now you're telling me to do this. Which one is a priority? And so she forces me to sort of, say, okay, well, put that to the side and stick to what you're doing, or drop that and do this now. So sometimes things jump up that move off, long-term planning or immediate planning, but we really try to combine the two, long-term and then put it down to more immediate. And I really hope that answered your question.
Yeah, Paul goes, wow. And I was feeling, Walt, when I'm hearing you talk about the importance of understanding each donor. It's like understanding the relationship with people with whom we work, whom we lead, or with whom we
critical.
Interact, the degree to which we understand that other, whoever that other may be, and we leverage that to and honor them, out of respect for them. All of a sudden, we build something that causes them to want to invest at a deeper level. And with a donor, that's what is essential, right?
Yeah, very much so. I really like what I do in terms of my relationship with my donors, is because I find, first of all, I believe in the mission of the school. Sending inner city boys to colleges and universities across the country, and they go there and they kick butt, and they come back and they change the world, and it's my heart. But beyond that, it's the relationship that I have with my donors. These people, they're trying to change the world, and so some of them called me, when the civil unrest occurred, and they were distraught, and they're like, "What else can I do? What can I?" And I calmed a lot of them down, and I said, I understand, and these are, there's a couple books you might want to read, but at the end of the day, when someone says to you, "What did you do?" you point to Verbum Dei and you say, "You did this for these students." Mm-hmm. And it's so powerful because I'm just the conduit. I'm just the person in the middle.
Describe these young people, because most people don't know Verbum Dei High School. And folks who are looking at it, I have friends in Canada and other places, they won't know the school.
Okay, so Verbum Dei is a school in Watts. And a family of four will have an income of about $40,000, a family of four. And so the students come to school between 1 and 2, sometimes 3 years behind. And we promise them, if we do what we ask them to do, they will get accepted into college. They also work 1 day a week in corporate companies, Fortune 500 companies. So 1 day a week that they work, and a portion of that helps fund their education at the school. It's an amazing place.
And what's so critical is the majority are Black and brown students. They're Black, they're Latinos, they're Native Americans.
Yes.
And they're, then you have a few point whites.
Yes.
But the key thing is that they come in so underprepared, with no a sense of their capacity. They don't know how to ask a question, or even that they have a right to ask questions. And then they go within a very short period of time. I mean, let's put aside so-called remediation. They're required to learn now, to learn how to learn, and to understand the college level coursework now, not 3 years from now, not 5 years from now, but now. And then for multiple years, you had 100% of the graduates in college at the universities across the country.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
Oh my goodness, they need so much. It's going to take so many years, et cetera. And they used to tell me that when I was a president, and I could always think back at Verbum Dei. I could always think back at other places on the planet where literally folks have limited to nothing, and they are given hope and love. And that in and of itself transformed them. And that hope and love comes not only from people like you who are there in the school, mentoring them, also donors, and people, increasingly those who find out about it, and they don't want to be known. They just want to support. So
very
I want
much so. It's very true.
Who are listening across the globe, all of us, I humbly believe, are leaders in our own spaces, or can be. And what is leadership to Paul is very unique to his set of understandings and just breadth and depth of reading and actual experiences that have worked. What is leadership to you? Reflect on it. Think about what works, what has worked, and what could actually be transformative in your family's life, in the neighborhood's life, in the community's life, and society. We have a responsibility to shift things. And I think that now is the time to shift things so that not only a 1% or half of 1% have all that they can imagine. We all have a right to imagine, to use that high mental tool, to be creative, to have that heart-mind connection to that imagining, that fantasy goal, and then to allow others to leverage others, as Paula indicated, through mentorship, through observations, through reading, through just listening, in order to shake us out of our comfort zones and sleep so that we can be excited about that new, remarkable, transformative vision and go for it. Like these young people who were throwaway people, like Paul and I were at some point. We both were foster kids. I mean, he was a foster kid. I was a throwaway kid in social services. But we found a way. We had a vision at some point. Paul's path was different from mine, but ultimately we're very successful beyond what anyone imagined when we were just little kids. We chose, and that's our power, is to choose. And I want you to know that Paul and I are about reminding you of your capacity to do more than just choose. Choose in a way that demonstrates a sense of heart, where you're adding value to humanity. And the degree to which you're successful, wherever you're on the planet, you ensure our greater success. We need you. And as I've always said, we need each other even when we don't want to need each other. We really do benefit.
No doubt.
Is there any words you want to end with? Because this is, I love you, of course. I love my family. And it's an honor to be able to share you with countless people.
No, all I would say is thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be a part of this and to have a little bit of my brain picked. But none of this came from me. It all came from people, asking me to read this and pointing to that and giving me information. As again, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And so I'm honored. And you're one of those giants of the shoulders that I stand on without a doubt. So thank you.
I love you. My honor. Thank you so much, Paul.
Love you too. I love you too.
Yeah. And so I see Alana, she says, so inspirational. Roy, awesome work. Thank you all who have not even commented. You're behind the scenes contributing. I just want to say, and also thanks to Raleigh, to Jet, who's in the Philippines, and thanks to Roy again, who this is his inspiration, this Lead Life show. We want you to be inspired. And more than that, we want you to take the action that you can take wherever you're at, whether you're in a small village, whether you're in a bustling city, wherever you're at. Use that inspiration to really transform you. And thank you for joining us, Catherine and Camille, another one of our nieces, Catherine, a colleague. She says, thank you, Paul, and so many others I'm sure we won't know. And that's the interesting thing about broadcasting. You don't know who's online. But I want to thank you, though, for those of you who joined us. And thank you, David. He said, this is awesome. And thank you to those who are going to see this in the future. Leverage this. Look at it more than once. Certainly join us for subsequent shows. We're on every Wednesday at noon, Pacific Standard Time, US Canadian time, and of course 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So wherever you're at on the planet, join us. If you can't make one week, come another week. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. Be well.
Be well.